Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to getting, well, properly informed.
That's the goal.
Today, we're really diving into some intriguing declassified material, looking at hidden influences, challenging stories from the late 20th century.
Yeah, stuff that makes you rethink things.
Our mission really is to find those key pieces of info that help you connect the dots, especially, around power and how official statements sometimes drift from the documented facts.
It happens more often than you might think.
So what really shapes our views, and more importantly, the views of people in positions of significant power?
That's the core question, isn't it?
Okay, so let's kick off with a really fascinating look at the backgrounds of U.S. Supreme Court justices. This idea of fathers and sons and daughters, crucially.
Right.
Take Justice Brennan. His father was an Irish immigrant, started out shoveling coal.
A tough start.
Absolutely. This was before, strong labor laws. He became a union organizer, really fought his way through, and eventually ran New York's Department of Public Safety.
Quite a climb.
And Brennan, the justice, seemed to carry that idea that justice has to work for everyone throughout his whole career.
And what's really striking is how that feeling, that perspective of how life looks from the bottom of the barrel, as it's put.
Yeah.
How that echoes with other justices from around that time. You think of Thurgood Marshall, his father, the grandson of a slave, or Harry Blackman, who talked about growing up in poor surroundings. He knew explicitly there's another world out there that we sometimes forget about.
It wasn't just biography. It was like a lens.
Exactly. A fundamental lens for seeing fairness and law.
Okay, but then you see a real shift. Contrast those justices with some later ones.
Right. The background's changed quite a bit.
Like Justice White, his father, involved in the lumber business, which was known for being pretty anti-union.
Yeah, that suggests a potentially different perspective on labor, on corporate power.
Or Justice Stevens, son of a wealthy Chicago businessman. Very different world.
Very different.
And then Chief Justice Rehnquist grew up in a well-off Milwaukee suburb. His parents apparently admired Alf Landon, Herbert Hoover.
Pre-New Deal conservative figures. That definitely signals a certain worldview, maybe more skeptical of big government.
And Reagan's appointees, O'Connor, Scalia, Kennedy.
Yeah.
They came of age, during the prosperous Eisenhower 50s.
The swell of the 50s, yeah.
Their fathers were like a rancher, a professor of Romance languages, a well-known Catholic Republican lawyer.
A real mix, but generally comfortable, established backgrounds compared to Brennan or Marshall.
So connecting the dots here,
Yeah.
it really makes you ask, how do these vastly different childhoods, these formative years, actually shape judicial philosophy?
It has to, right? It suggests maybe our understanding of justice isn't just some abstract thing. It's deeply colored by life experience, by social background.
It's not about saying one is right or wrong, but just acknowledging that weight of experience behind every decision.
Exactly. It's just acknowledging the human element in the interpretation of law.
Okay, so that's one angle, personal history shaping views on justice. But this idea of official narratives versus what's actually documented, that goes beyond individuals.
Definitely. It applies to institutions, too.
Let's shift gears a bit. Look at how institutions handle their public image versus maybe the messier reality. We see this theme in some declassified government operations, for instance. The CIA had a public stance. It neither engages in nor condones drug trafficking.
A very clear statement.
Very clear.
But then you look at the source material, the evidence that's come out, and questions arise.
How so?
Well, for example, there are details from a witness connected to major Mexican drug traffickers. This witness claimed a Contra training camp down in Mexico actually had CIA sponsorship.
Okay.
And then there's Robert Owen. He was Oliver North's courier to the Contras, right?
Yeah, during Iran-Contra.
He noted that a specific plane, a DC-4 used for flying supplies, was, in his words, used at one time to run drugs.
So a direct link suggested there.
And you also have former Contras, people the CIA assisted, who testified about what they called a symbiotic relationship with drug traffickers.
Symbiotic, meaning mutually beneficial.
Apparently. With officials reportedly saying it was okay to accept assistance as long as we don't deal with the powder. Basically, take the help, just don't handle the drugs directly.
Wow. That's quite specific.
It is. And even Joseph Fernandez, a CIA station chief involved in the whole affair, testified that someone a higher authority told him to keep working with people he suspected were in the drug trade.
So multiple accounts seem to paint a different picture than the official denial.
Taken together, yeah, this collection of testimony and notes really does challenge that initial public statement quite directly.
It certainly seems to. When you get several independent sources pointing another way, well, what does that suggest about how institutions sometimes manage the difference between public relations and internal operations?
It suggests a significant gap can exist.
Ultimately, what this deep dive seems to highlight is this pattern. Official denials, even from really powerful organizations like the CIA, can sometimes be, well, starkly contradicted by documented realities found in the public record, if you dig deep enough.
Which underlines just how crucial it is to look past the surface. To question the easy answers and really try to understand the nuances, the underlying facts.
Absolutely. It means constantly digging for that public record.
Diligently, yeah.
So thinking about this for you, our listener, what does it all mean? We've seen how personal histories might deeply influence perspectives, even at the Supreme Court level.
And how official stories from powerful groups don't always match the documented details.
So maybe consider how our own backgrounds, yours, mine, everyone's shape, not just what we notice, but what we actually believe about the world around us, especially on big things like power, like justice.
What really stands out to you about how these personal histories or these institutional narratives might be rippling through public life today?
Yeah. What makes you question what might be happening behind the headlines? Something to think about. Thanks for deep diving with us.